Hi, I'm Jeevita from NYSI and I'm a sports psychologist there. And today I'll be talking about the sports psychology support for the Netball Academy at Singapore Sports School.
I'm Shermaine. I'm a sports psychologist at NYSI, and I'm currently helping to lead a culture-based project with the SSP Swimming Academy.
Hi, my name is Louis. I'm a performance pathway manager at NYSI. So the project that we have completed with the Netball Academy is the Holistic Ecological Approach to Talent Development.
So it started off with the coaches identifying mental skills as an important part of development for the athletes. And they were looking at a more holistic approach and also looking to see how we could leverage on mindfulness in the support. So this led to, of course, just generally having to work with the environment and of course, working closely with the coaches in building a more facilitative environment. And also using acceptance and commitment therapy approach, which is also something that's in line with the sports psychology team philosophy. So what acceptance and commitment therapy approach is basically looking at psychological flexibility and looking at the present moment focus, looking at, are we behaving in line with our values, and also looking at acceptance of difficult thoughts and emotions. So, acknowledging that sport can be, of course, challenging and life can be challenging, right? And it's, are we willing to accept or be willing to experience these unpleasant or difficult thoughts and emotions and still live according to our values, basically. So this, I guess, the holistic approach and the acceptance and commitment therapy approach, which of course involves mindfulness as well, was the general approaches that led us to a certain outline of a program. So because the coaches were also looking at, how we can continuously build mental skills across levels, so from Sec 1 and so on. So so that started off with looking at self-awareness, which also mindfulness was also a part of it. But yeah, so self-awareness was something that we acknowledge that it's not something that we just do for one session or just 4 sessions and just for Sec 1s, right? It's an ongoing process. So looking at values, looking at identity, looking at strengths and weaknesses, looking at goals, what motivates the athletes, and of course also just being aware of like their different thoughts, emotions, behaviors in different situations, and that had to be continuously built across different levels. So yeah, that was one of the main focus. And another thing that was also more in line with netball, that was more catered to netball as well as the sport and its academy, was that the athletes were continuously going to change different teams. They were continuously going to be working with different teams, right? So it was building those communication skills, how do I work with different teams, basically. And I guess another general theme, in addition to self-awareness and working with different teams and building that communication skills, was dealing with adversity. And I guess this language that it became a common language was this thing, lighthouse model, basically. And this lighthouse model is very much in line with acceptance and commitment therapy and psychological flexibility. So, am I again acknowledging my thoughts and emotions and living according to my values instead of taking the side road, which is easier, right? Sometimes it's easier to take the side road or the easy exit, as we call it. But are we really living according to our values? So yeah, and these are things that the coaches also reinforced. So it was not just doing it in the classroom or in a workshop setting and then that's it. It was continuously working with the coaches and going down for training as well to re-emphasize these points so that it's not just a one-off thing. And yeah, and I think what was also something that we did was giving athletes a voice, giving them autonomy as well. So in terms of gaining feedback, it was not only about gaining feedback or evaluating the support from the coach's point of view, was also asking the athletes like, hey, what is working for you? What's not working for you? You know, and what can be better? And yeah, and I mean, generally, we've just had a tough year, right? I mean, it's been a really challenging year, and a lot of other issues had also come up. So it was also like addressing those issues as they came up. And I mean, the coaches and I joke about how when we always have a plan, and then sometimes we just like have to go off plan because certain things just come up, and you know, that's sport, that's life, right? So it's also about, can we be psychologically flexible as well? I mean, we are asking athletes to be psychologically flexible. So I guess it's also something that we have to follow as well. So yeah, I guess that would be the general support and the overview of what we've been doing with the Netball Academy.
So this project essentially looks at the culture of the entire academy. Want to consider both the coaches as well as the swimmers. I think typically a lot of work is done with the athletes themselves. But this time around, I think a large portion of this project revolves around the coaches as well. So let me just give a brief introduction as to what this project is all about. Essentially, this project consists of 3 approaches. The first approach consists of understanding more of what's happening on the ground. That's done by going for trainings, conducting training observations, doing interviews with the coaches as well as the athletes. Okay, so understanding what's happening on the ground. The second approach is essentially working with the coaches. So we've arranged for an external consultant to come in and do profiling. So it's called the spotlight profiling with the coaching team. This profiling can give them a better idea of themselves, help them to understand how they work best. And by sharing their profiles with one another, the team as a whole can know how each other work best as well. So it's not just how you work best, what your strengths are, how you can motivate yourself, but how can the people around you bring out the best in you as well. That's the second approach. And the third approach, of course, is work with the athletes. We have a curriculum that helps to equip the athletes as they progress. So of course, this curriculum, it spends the time that they're going to the SSP Academy, start from primary 6, because that's what the coach and the GM feel is important. They want the incoming P6ers to feel like they're already part of the academy. So they are intending to start from the primary 6 level, and then it will go all the way till the IB1, IB2 level, but at that point of time, their main role, or essentially just the curriculum itself that is set aside for that level, is for them to role models, because they would already have all the tools and all the skills built up across the years. When they reach that point, the idea is for them to actually be able to role model all these tools and skills for the younger ones, the academy itself. So these are the 3 approaches that we're taking.
So in 2020, head coach Lindsay reached out to NYSI to want to know more about the netball environment within SSP. So what we did is that we found the holistic ecological approach to talent development and applied it to the Netball Academy. So the process was divided into 2 phases. Phase 1, where we actually interview internal stakeholders such as the athletes, coaches, and administrators within the Netball Academy. And we created a few models to illustrate the environment. Next, we identified key external stakeholders such as parents, alumni, and the current under 21s to actually interview them one-on-one to find out more information of the environment and different perspective of the environment. At the end of 2 phases, we create the athletic talent development environment model and the environment success factors model. Both models allow us to actually view the environment in a more evidence-based approach and also discover the different relationships between the groups and organizations around the Netball Academy.
So I guess gaining that feedback from the athletes and coaches, there were a few things that came up. I guess from the athlete point of view, it was about some of the things that came up was about being able to manage their emotions better. Like just like pausing before responding, because that's something that we talked about, right? Like sometimes it's just easy to react to stuff, but can we actually take that step back and pause and respond instead of reacting? And also so mindfulness was a part of the support as well, right? And I guess it was also about giving them the tools, because I cannot be the one telling them do mindfulness this day. It's also something that had to, acknowledging that it takes time, right? Even as adults, we're not going to suddenly be practicing mindfulness every day. That's something that takes time, but I guess it's about giving them the tools to do so that, okay, hey, you have these apps, so something that we tell them to use is also Headspace, but they've also come up with, they've also found their own apps, applications to use. So they shared that they've been using mindfulness a bit more frequently on their own, which is good. And I think this one thing that really stood out for me, and especially because we've had such a challenging year, and with competitions being postponed and then cancelled eventually, and sometimes the athletes could wonder, like, actually, why am I even here? What am I doing this for? There were definitely a lot of those questions. And I guess what stood out for me was when they said that the values actually help them to kind of see things or see sports beyond just goals and competitions. And not to say that they are not important or that goals are not important, but it's like, who do I want to be? What kind of athlete do I want to be? What kind of person, or how do I want to act in this world? Which was really good to hear, right? That they are looking at the long-term development rather than just the short-term competitions, which is, so I think that was something that was really good to hear, that they were actually looking at things a bit differently. And I guess from the coach's point of view, it was more of that, I think they feedback that there was this consistent support, right? And mental skills or sports psychology sessions were not just looked as a one-off thing or only came in when there were problems. It was kind of something that was part of training. And I guess the coaches and I working together closely so that everybody's speaking the same language, and it's not about, you're only learning about sports psychology in a classroom. The coaches are definitely reinforcing that, using the same kind of keywords, references, especially the lighthouse model, the values, and kind of tying everything together. So I guess that's where also the environment part came in, and the athlete part came in. So and I guess like just generally the kids had shared that they got to understand themselves more, each other more, get to know their strengths, their weaknesses. And I guess thinking about things beyond just competitions and looking at it in the long term. Yeah.
What has already been done is we've done the training observations, we've done the interviews, the interviews are transcribed, and I'm currently in the process of analyzing all the data that's there, and there's so much, it's so rich. Honestly, I feel that I'll probably have to have ongoing conversations with the coaches in order to really relay the depth of the data collected. But I'm really excited because there's just so much that's been collected, and I'm really eager to share some of these findings with them, because I feel that it's going to be really helpful. will help them. I see it from two perspectives. The first one is really understand how the athletes feel, because sometimes I think the coaching staff, the coaching team, they may really want to drive a certain vision or a certain direction, and sometimes some athletes get left behind, or they slip through the cracks. But I feel that by having some of this interview data and sharing all that has been collected, the coaching staff, it can also give them sense feedback as to how the athletes are responding to this direction, how they are responding to this kind of new culture that the coaches want to create. So I think that's really one big thing. And of course, the second thing is for them to also hear from the athletes what are some gaps that the athletes might be seeing. Sometimes the coaches might see certain things, but the athletes themselves are the ones that are going through all of these processes. They are the ones that are going through training. They're the ones that are going through they're just the daily the day-to-day routines, the environment itself. And I think that in that sense they will be best equipped, best placed to share and give feedback on what are some other things that they think the academy can continue to improve on, or can make progress in. That those are some of the questions that were asked as well. How do you think the culture can be improved, or what are some things that you think can continue to be done? Yeah. So that's for training observations, interviews. In terms of the spotlight profiling, some of the feedback that I got from those sessions was that the one session we had earlier this year really created a platform for all the coaches to start to be open with one another, to start to understand each other a bit better, and to start to share a bit more openly. And from what I'm hearing, things are just getting better. So I think that really created a very good space, a very good platform for them to start to communicate well with one another through understanding how each other work best, how each other function, how each other are like. So I think that was quite a good one that the coaches requested for another session actually, and we are currently planning for that to take place next month. So yeah, hopefully that will be another good time of sharing, another good time of interacting, and just understanding a bit more about each other and bringing out the best in each other. And the third approach, so that's something that I'm actively talking to the GM and of course the coaches about as well. We are planning on starting off with the P6, incoming P6ers, and we're going to use that to start off the curriculum that we have planned for them. I think a lot of this project was affected by the situation. So I do want to acknowledge that, of course, sometimes with the constantly changing situation, the measures keep changing, and of course that affects whether we can have in-person sessions, whether all these sessions have to be done online. And online is always the not so ideal option. Yeah. So yeah, I think I would say things have been completed, things are still ongoing, but I think these are the ways that can help benefit the SSP Academy and can continue to benefit the SSP Academy as well.
So through the holistic ecological approach, we are able to actually map out models that show the different relationships between organizations and groups around the Netball Academy. So this will allow the Netball Academy parents or even the student athletes to understand who are supporting them in the micro environment or the macro environment. Secondly, one of the key findings that we found is that the student athletes within the Netball Academy lack proximal role models in their sport. So Coach Lindsay have tried to actually create a mentorship program with alumni or even current national team players so that the athletes will have role models within their sport. Lastly, organizational culture is something that is very strong within the holistic ecological approach. We have identified a few weaknesses and strengths of the organizational culture of the Netball Academy, and the coaches are working on trying to improve it by creating different traditions and different values that they live by to create a strong organizational culture within the Netball Academy.